Yo, 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 year 4! It's Mrs. Fletcher-Brown here again, ready to talk you through Thursday, the 7th of January's English lesson. I bet you are pumped and super excited for this. So, grammar. My goodness, you have learnt so much already and you are blowing us away with how wonderful your work is. We're really proud of you. I know that working from home can be very, very different to working in school. But if you take pride in your work, I promise you it will make you feel even happier because you'll have a sense of accomplishment. And we're really proud of you. So keep going. Okay, so let's start off just like we did yesterday with a bit of quick revision. So I want you to see if you can write a definition of what a noun is, then a definition of what a verb is, and then a definition of what an adjective is. You did that yesterday, so that should be pretty easy. And then today we're going to add on to that by seeing if you can write a definition of what an adverb is. Once you've done that, see if you can write a silly sentence that includes all 4. And do take pictures of your silly sentences and send them to your class teacher because, like I said before, we need the lols. So it'd be lovely to see. So just start off with that. Now, today we are going to be learning about adverbial phrases. Now, no one panic, because sometimes in grammar we hear the terminology, that means what the definition of words are and the names of different types of words, and we just freak out because it sounds really complicated. But you will completely understand what this is by the end of the year. Even if you don't get it this week, don't worry. We'll keep coming back to all of this. But you know what a phrase is. A phrase is a group of words. You know what an adverb is. It's a word that describes how or when something is happening. So an adverbial phrase is just a word or a group of words that describes when or how something happens. So either listen as I read through this example here and then watch the video, or pause my video and click on this link and you can watch that first. So an adverbial phrase is like an adverb, so don't panic. It adds more information to the sentence, but it uses more than one word to describe the verb. So an adverb is a single word that describes the verb, the doing word. An adverbial phrase are more than one word that describes what's happening, that describes the verb. So for example, the farmer drove the tractor in the evening. The farmer drove the tractor could have been the end of my sentence, could have put a full stop there. Farmer is the noun, drove is the verb, that's what he's doing, tractor is another noun, and that could have been a simple sentence all by itself. But I've included this adverbial phrase to tell me when the farmer is driving the tractor. So the farmer drove the tractor in the evening. That's when it's happening. So adverbs and adverbial phrases can describe how, when, or where a verb, that's the doing word, is done. So for example, how the bees flew wildly. Well, look, that's an adverb there. It's a single word, an adverb that describes how they're flying. That's the verb. Bees are the noun. I could have the bees flew, full stop. That would have made sense. But instead I'm including how they flew. The bees flew wildly. I could then write an adverbial describing when the bees flew. So again, I could have had the bees flew with a full stop. Totally fine. Could have been a simple sentence all by itself. But I want to describe when. So the bees flew all of a sudden. There's the adverbial. I could also have put where the bees flew. So I could have had the bees flew, full stop, totally fine. Thank you very much. But I think I'll include an adverbial. a group of words to describe where they flew. So the bees flew through the air. And all of these are examples of adverbials. I beg your pardon, I should have put a full stop there and I've missed one out. I'm very sorry. If you managed to spot that, well done you. Now remember, these adverbials don't have to go at the end of a sentence. If I wrote, all of a sudden, comma, the bees flew, my adverbial would suddenly be at the front of my sentence, which would make it a fronted adverbial. So that's all that means, fronted adverbial. It just means a group of words describing the verb that go at the front of the sentence. That's a little bit of an extra challenge for some of you. Don't worry if that confuses you too much. You don't need to understand that just yet. But these are all examples of adverbs and adverbials. So there are 5 main types of adverbial phrases. And again, don't panic. Phrases just means a group of words. Adverbs, they're describing the verb. So adverbial phrases is just a group of words that describe the verb. So they can describe the time when something happens, where something happens, how often something happens, the manner that it happens, of how it happens, and the degree of possibility, so how likely it is to happen. So time, place, frequency, manner, and a degree of possibility. So all of these here are examples of adverbials. So for example, time adverbials could be sometime later. So for example, I could have sometime later, Mrs. Fletcher-Brown began devouring an entire Toblerone. So that would be a fronted adverbial in that sentence. It's the adverbial phrase. It's telling you when I devoured the Toblerone. Place, so that's where. So out in the paddock, Mrs. Fletcher-Brown galloped around like a horse. Mrs. Fletcher-Brown galloped around like a horse would be the main sentence. Out in the paddock tells me where that's happening. I could have it at the front of the sentence, which would have been a fronted adverbial, but it doesn't have to be at the front. I could say, Mrs. Fletcher-Brown galloped round like a horse out in the paddock. Frequency, that's how often something happens. Generally, Mrs. Fletcher-Brown enjoys chocolate. So that tells you how frequently I enjoy chocolate. Manner, manically. Manically, Mrs. Fletcher-Brown stuffed an entire box of chocolates into her face. I could also have Mrs. Fletcher-Brown stuffed an entire box of chocolates into her face manically. That would have also been absolutely fine. All of these are examples of adverbials. Manically was telling you how I was stuffing the chocolate into my face, which is quite true actually. I often do it manically. And then degrees of possibility, that sounds very fancy, doesn't it? Degrees of possibility. That just tells that all that means there is how likely it is to happen. So obviously your teachers think you are wonderful. That means it's very likely that your teachers think that you are wonderful. And obviously is an adverb, an adverbial. So all these words are adverbs or adverbials which describe the doing word, the verb. So like yesterday, you don't need to print this off. You've got 2 activities here. You've got the first activity and then you've got a challenge. You don't need to print it. You can just write these onto your piece of paper or in your workbook. So here, each of the words in the box is an adverbial of time. So that's telling you when something is happening, when the verb, the doing word is happening. And you've got 4 sentences here. What we'd like you to do is see if you can pick one of these adverbials of time and include it in these blank spaces. Make sure that the whole sentence makes sense. Don't randomly pick one and just plonk it in because you want to get the task done quickly. It's got to make sense. Once you've done that, your challenge is to underline each of the adverbials of time that you find in this extract here. You might see some examples from this. You might see some examples from here as well. You might see some that aren't written down previously. So remember, an adverbial of time, all that means is a word, an adverb or group of words describing the verb. So when something is happening. Okay, so today, this is your main task now. Just like the previous days, really similar structure. You've got a picture. What we're going to do is we're going to write what happened to the Lego man. And we're going to use adverbials to describe what happened. So here is Miss Samra's example. Lawrence was injured, afraid, lost and completely alone. He had been thrown viciously from the aircraft after the flock of birds had attacked the propellers. As he lay there, listening to his racing heart, he wondered what would happen to him. Would he make it out alive? So adverbials are just like adverbs, describing the verb, so what's happening. So, for example, he hadn't just been thrown from the aircraft, he'd been thrown viciously. This is an adverb, not so much an adverbial, but it is an adverb. And he had been thrown from the aircraft could have been a simple sentence by itself. He had been thrown viciously from the aircraft includes an adverb, but we've also got when it happened, after the flock of birds had attacked the propellers. That's the adverb. That's the adverbial phrase, the group of words that are describing when he was thrown from the aircraft. Viciously is describing how he was thrown from the aircraft. Once you have written your description, just like the previous days, we want you to use these colours to underline or to highlight the different word classes. So nouns you'll find in red, blue will be for adjectives, yellow will be for verbs, green can be for adverbs, so they are usually the single words that describe the verb. So back here, viciously would be green. Adverbials, so groups of words that describe the doing word, the action, can be highlighted in orange. So for example, here we could have after the flock of birds had attacked the propellers. That's the adverbial. So that all could have been highlighted in orange. Once you've written your description, and again, you can copy and paste this picture to a Word document, or you can print it off and stick it on your piece of paper or in your workbook, or you can just look at it from the screen and write down on your paper or in your workbook. We'd like you to highlight the different word classes, then take a picture of it and send it into Dojo. You're doing really, really well. We can't wait to see some even better examples of work than the previous days, and that's hard because your work has been immense. We're really proud of you. Keep going, keep showing us what you can do, and we'll see you tomorrow to give you your feedback and to talk through the final lesson. See you later, Year 4.